Hey everyone, and welcome back to Cavalier Insider. I'm Whitey Reed, joined by the legendary Jerry Hootie Ratcliffe. And Hoots, last night, a tough loss for Virginia. The much anticipated, much hyped game between the 25th ranked Cavaliers and the 14th ranked VCU Rams. VCU prevails on that last second three-pointer there, 59-56. Virginia, the game was right there for the taking. They had the 7-point lead, a few minutes to play. Just couldn't really close things out. The missed free throws, I think they were 19 of 33 from the line in last night's game. That's never going to usually cut it. That always comes back to haunt you, that kind of thing. What were your general impressions of the performance last night?
Well, it was a great game, in the fact that it was had the intensity of almost an NCAA game, I thought, in that respect. Physical, defensive. It wasn't very pretty offensively for either team, but a few things, impressions I had was I was surprised, almost stunned that Virginia was so poor from the free throw line. They've generally been a good free throw shooting team over the last couple of years. I did expect them to not be a great three-point shooting team, and that bared out to be true. But the other thing that kind of surprised me was that Virginia just seemed to me to lack a little poise down the stretch when things were crucial and on the line, and they just didn't exhibit the kind of poise and cool that you would expect a team of that somewhat maturity that's won back-to-back 20-game seasons would exhibit. That kind of surprised me, and that's something that they're definitely going to have to improve on down the stretch. And I guess the other thing, and again, it was against VCU's intense pressure, which not many teams can hold up to. I wonder a little bit if Malcolm Brogdon is going to be able to handle that kind of pressure at the point guard, or it seemed to me like London Parantes had a better feel for the game in that respect.
No, I can definitely see that point. Parantes, we're gonna have to ask him
I'm not sure either.
how he goes with that pronunciation. But he definitely looked steady. He didn't look unnerved. I know he finished with 4 turnovers, and I think Malcolm also had 4 turnovers. But Malcolm's turnovers to me seemed to be the more costly ones. When Malcolm turned it over, it seemed to lead to something truly bad, like an easy layup or something like that.
Right.
The one caveat, I'm personally still a believer of the Malcolm can be a point guard on this team because of the fact you're not going to see that many teams who play this style like VCU. You might not see any teams who play that style.
True.
So I'm not ready to just say, hey, Malcolm can't play point guard just because he had this one sort of subpar game against VCU, a team that gives almost any point guard in America fits. So I'm kind of the mindset, let's see how this plays out a little more. Malcolm can still be a matchup nightmare for opposing teams because of his size. He's a 6'4", 6'5" guy. And I think even a couple occasions last night, we saw where he kind of used his size and shot over smaller defenders. The question I have, Hoots, is where has Akil Mitchell kind of been through these first 2 games? If you look at his stats, I think he only had a couple boards last night. This is a guy who practically averaged a double-double last season in his breakout year. I know it's only been 2 games, and there's a lot more big men and more depth on the team this year, which is going to spread the statistics around a little more. But to me, Akil's been kind of quiet.
Yeah, you're right. He hasn't made a lot of noise, and Justin Anderson really didn't do anything statistically last night to take note of. So, yeah, if either one of those guys plays just a little bit better, they win the game. But yeah, that's a bit of a surprise too, being a senior and the type of athlete and the type of player he is. I know he's a guy they lean on for leadership and production. So. Yeah, he's definitely got to step it up a little bit.
And Anthony Gill, too. And Anthony Gill, who had the great season opening performance, 5 of 5 from the field, led the team in scoring with 13 points against James Madison. Last night against VCU, I don't think he took a single shot, if memory serves me correct.
I know he didn't score.
He had 0 points, so still trying to feel things out there. And Mike Tobey, who we're all expecting huge things from this season, I think he played maybe 10 or 11 minutes. We asked Tony about that in the post-game presser. and Tony said something to the effect that he wanted to go with his best defensive lineup against VCU, which I guess entails Darion Atkins and Akil taking up those minutes. But still, with Toby's potential, I know Virginia fans are getting a little antsy. They'd like to see more of the big fella.
Yeah, and it seemed to me, at least in the first half, that VCU had a bit of a struggle trying to deal with his size. I mean, he had 9 rebounds in like 9 minutes or something like that in the first half. And I don't know, to me, a guy like that, if he seems like he can do some damage inside with his ability to score. And he had a couple of nice putbacks on that.
How about that sky hook?
And that sky hook, that was very impressive.
That was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Looks like it's something he's been working on in the offseason.
My goodness, what a lost art. Why don't more big men have the sky hook?
You never see that anymore.
And it's unstoppable when a 6'11" guy's shooting it. That's never getting blocked, and it looks so smooth. I'm going to have to write a story on that soon, how he got going with that, because it's such a lost art.
It really is.
The one thing we should touch on before we sign off here was Evan Nolte's injury. He obviously didn't play against VCU, which kind of a big loss there. It's one of those things you don't really think about till after the fact when you look at the box score and see Virginia was only 1 of 8 from the three-point line. Nolte is one of their best three-point shooters. Even if he's not hitting the three, he has that ability to stretch the defense out and make guys like Gillen Mitchell more productive on the interior. So I think that was sort of a loss, and his status is kind of up in the air for this weekend against Davidson for the game down in Charlotte. Concussion-like symptoms, I've heard. They feared maybe he could have possibly broken his nose, too. I'm not 100% sure on the status of that, but we'll find out soon. They'll need Nolte back to be the team that everybody thinks and expects they can be this year, I think, just because there aren't that many pure shooters on this team other than Nolte and Joe Harris.
Yeah, I would agree. And just like you said, even if he's not connecting on the threes, there's the threat that he could, and you've got to respect that threat, because when you back off and give him an open shot, he could kill you. So on a team that's lacking a lot of perimeter shooters, it's important to have a guy like him around.
Well, I'm fired up, Hoots, for our road trip down to Charlotte this weekend. We'll be down there all weekend for this game against Davidson. And any final thoughts?
No, I think they'll probably play better. I think that, Tony mentioned last night, and I believe it's true, that they'll learn from this, and it'll make them a better basketball team. And I think they will. I'm a little surprised they played this game so early. I think Virginia might have been better off if they'd played this game in December, have let these guys get a little momentum going. But I'm sure TV probably had something to do with that. But I think they will become a better team out of it, and who knows, maybe we'll see these two teams play again sometime down the road.
Well, we'll be back here next week to talk about everything again here on Cavalier Insider. Our thanks to Cameron Hall behind the camera there, and his patience for your tardiness and coming to this little video session.
And I've got a little breaking news, although this won't show up until a little bit later after it's announced. But the ACC tournament for 3 years from now, I think this year and next year, it's in Greensboro. It's going to be announced, or has been announced, that the ACC tournament is moving to Washington, D.C. for a year, which is kind of surprising considering that Maryland is no longer in the conference after this season. So even though Maryland's gone, the ACC is showing people in that area that Washington, D.C. is still ACC territory.
Well, that'll be a cheaper trip than if we had to go to New York,
Absolutely,
which was the big rumor.
Absolutely.
We can make D.C. work, but cool. We'll talk to everybody next week.